podcast about feeling at ease where you are. When you're comfortable or at home with yourself, you tend to be more open to trying new things. Going the distance in a marathon, for instance. I'm Kate Thomas. Today's conversation is with Megan Lavins, who came in second among about 7,500 women in the 2020 Boston Marathon, which was held virtually in September. Megan, welcome.
Thank you.
What I'd love to have you do is describe the day when you decided you wanted to be a marathoner.
Well, thank you for having me. And to start off with that day, I didn't really know I was going to be a marathoner until months and quite honestly years later. So it was about 2018 and I had just moved to New York City after graduating from American University, and it was early September. And I was always a runner for a few years, but I only ran about 3 miles a day. And my friend the night before texted me and said, do you want to meet in Central Park? And we could do a little bit of a longer run. So like 6 miles, which was like, for me, like nervous, went to bed early. And I met him in the park, and it was like a beautiful fall day. And I was shocked that I ran double the distance of what I always do, but it was so fun. Like I talked the whole time. And right as I was finishing the run, I ran upon one of these famous Olympic runners who was stretching and warming up in the park. And I later found out that the Fifth Avenue Mile, a famous race, was taking place that morning. And I had no clue. And I saw these like inspiring women and men and just people of all ages and sizes running that race. And I was so inspired. So I literally went from that park and ran to the closest Nike store and said, well, I missed that race and I knew the New York City Marathon was in 2 months. So I went to like one of the workers there and said, how long does it take to train for a marathon? And he's like, well, it depends. And I was like, well, I run. He's like, well, then not as long for you. So I wasn't looking for him to tell me an answer. I had it in my head. And at that point I signed up with a charity. That was the only way I could enter at that point. And I joined a running club so I could run with other people. And I had about 8 weeks to train for my first marathon of 3, the New York City Marathon in 2018, and ran it in November.
Wow.
And it was at that point the best day of my life. Each one is now the best day of my life, but I never really looked back, and I knew it wasn't going to be the only one.
So do you wear Nikes? You went to the Nike store. Do you wear?
I do. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
They're fantastic, but I just love the store, and I think there's especially in New York, there's just like such an experience. So I figured I needed someone to give me the green light that I could be a marathoner. So I went to a store.
That's great. So the New York City Marathon was your first then?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then what was your second?
So the funny thing is New York is like not notoriously, but it's often known as just like the best marathon in the sense of size and crowds. And so I knew, I was like, okay, you can't compare, like the bar is set too high, like good luck. So I was like, let's try something quite literally the opposite. So I signed up for the Ohio Northern Marathon, which had no crowds, was run in neighborhoods. There was cones and cars still going. And it was the following November, but it was like the best experience in the sense that it was home. I was able to place first in women there.
And you're in your second marathon.
Yes, it was members much smaller than New York, but it was just kind of one of those things like, let's make it apples to oranges, so I don't need to compare the two. And that was like having that approach made it so enjoyable. So
wow, that is great.
Qualified for Boston, so yes.
So you're a financial analyst for JPMorgan Chase, and you've been working remotely during the pandemic back in Ohio at your parents' house. So when do you go back?
So it's unfortunately Ohio was just added back to the New York quarantine list. So luckily my team has been extremely like accommodating with everyone. It's just more about what works best for the individual because we do Zoom meetings and everything. Now that it's been 7 months. We've kind of gotten into a really good rhythm, so I don't have a set date anymore, and more just kind of seeing how the next few weeks play out.
It has been quite the time, hasn't it?
It has, but I'm like a creature of habit, so now this is my habit. It's weird.
Right. Okay. So So you have done 2 regular marathons with other people around, and then you did one virtual one,
Yeah.
that being the 3rd in Boston. Which would you say is the harder one to do?
Oh gosh. It's hard to gauge because like literally they're all 3 completely opposites. I would probably say the virtual just because you have no crowd, you have no start or stop. There's a sense of like, in a good way, pressure, like not peer pressure, but like pressure when you're running next to people. And I was also handling the pressure of like literally cars and traffic. And I was on a bike path with other bikers and walkers. So there was another different type of like complexity. There was things I gained from it. So like I was able to like adjust when I started because it was going to rain. So like there's pros and cons to every type of race. However, I would say that was definitely like mentally the hardest.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into the details about the virtual race in a little bit. But I'd like to know when you started running, at what age you were. You're 24 now, correct? So how old were you when you actually, that was in 2018. But you didn't do it in high school.
No, I didn't run in high school or college. I played volleyball and lacrosse. My running like timeline pre-college is actually really funny because my dad is a very like creature of habit runner. Ever since I literally could remember, he ran 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. So when I was really, really young, my mom would walk me out to the mailbox holding my hand. And when my dad was done with his run, he would pick me up and we'd run around the cul-de-sac and back. And it was like, I was so nervous, but so excited. And then I got like, 5 or 6 or 7, and I stopped that. Fast forward to high school, I literally chose volleyball because I was terrified of running. It freaked me out. I hated it in gym class. And I wanted to play 2 sports in high school, so I signed up for the lacrosse team. And for whatever reason, I was like, I'll play defense. Like, I don't think I'll have to run. And on the tryout week, I showed up the first day of tryouts, never holding a stick. And the first week or 2, they made us do the timed mile and a half. And I wouldn't say I cried, but I was just about there to run the mile and a half. And I had such a good experience with it that that kind of like got me into the rhythm. But there's been like fear in the past, like through middle school, I never ran. I was terrified of it. So a long timeline leading up to getting to that rhythm.
That's very interesting. So you had a good experience when you were very, very young with your dad taking you out for short little runs, and then you stopped doing it and you got into some fear about it, and then it started coming back a little, that the joy of it started coming back in little doses, it sounds.
Exactly. It was weird though. It had nothing to do with like my physical capability, and I can get into that later, but like I found that I had this like massive mental block. I remember it so clearly. My mom talks about it all the time. Just like in middle school, I was absolutely terrified. Like it was one of my fears of running. So full circle.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And now you're a marathon runner. Wow. So you've always been very active. What is your exercise routine these days? Do you run every day?
So during training, and actually all 3 trainings, I did 5 days a week. But knowing I wanted to get up to this last training cycle, I got up to about like high 60 miles. So getting that in 5 days is a lot harder. It forces you to run more those 5 days. Some people do 7, and I really like value 1 day off. So the past 2 months, since the marathon, I increased to running 6 days a week. I recently am hired or am now working with a coach to get a little bit more guidance. But long story short, my like daily ritual or routine is at least running 6 days a week. And Saturdays are my long runs. Sundays are like an easy long run. And then I have about 2 days of 2-a-days where I do like 2 like easy runs.
How do you fit it in to working and everything?
I love it. Like even my day off, Fridays are always my day off. And I was like, wow, I'm getting like, I've got the bug when I like want to run on my day off, but I run every day before work. So I get up about 5:45 or 5:50. And then I joke, but like my coffee run, I'm like running for coffee and I go out for 4 miles on those 2-a-days. And then Saturday or Sunday, we'll do it before church, or like just on Saturdays, I just get up at like 8.
Wow. So you go from fear and loathing to love.
Yeah.
What do you love about running?
Oh, what don't I love about it? It gives me like butterflies. Just, I think about it all the time. I love planning it. I love the running community. I feel like there's a very like welcoming community. My mom just kind of picked up running. She runs 10 miles a week, which she's always like, that's nothing. I'm like, that's incredible. Like, I just feel like it doesn't matter your age, your size, or your fitness, but like the minute you step out the door, it's as long as you put 2 feet going together, like you're welcome to the community. So I love that aspect. Yeah. And then I love the balance between the physical and mental toughness of it. Like, I find that it's more mentally tough. Like the night before a Saturday run, like I love it, but it's on my mind, and I'm planning what's the best route, what's the weather, what should I wear? Like there's so much mental components to it, apart from the physical aspect, that is really cool and like challenging, but like it's okay, we can do it kind of way. So
That's great. So your parents, Clancy and Molly, helped you with the virtual marathon.
Yes.
And so did your boyfriend, your brother, and your brother's girlfriend. So we already know your dad has been running for a long time. Your mom just picked it up and is running, what is it, 10 miles?
A week,
a week. That seems really good. How about anybody else in your life? Is anybody else a runner?
So my boyfriend he'll run a few days a week, which is awesome. He's so fast. So I'm always like, you've got such a gift. And I know he really enjoys it. He has some pretty heavy work hours. So he'll sometimes run it like on Friday. He ran at 10 o'clock at night, but he definitely enjoys running as well. So it's nice to talk with him about it.
I bet.
So yes, but definitely my parents like have the bug as well, which is cool to see. Like even this morning, we all like did our workouts and we all shared, and it's all different, but like it doesn't matter. It's not like, oh, that person went the fastest. It's just like, how'd you do? How'd you feel? And like, great, let's share like that feeling together.
That is great that you have that, that, it's not competitive as much as it is a community, and everybody's supporting each other.
Exactly. Actually, funny enough, just like aside, so last year I did this local race called the Frosty 5 Miler. My dad and I literally never done it before. We showed up on Christmas Eve, like ran this 5-mile race around our like small little town. And the person, I got third in women, and the person who got second is now one of my closest running friends. Her name's Ashton, and she beat me, but like she's now become a mentor. We meet at the end of my neighborhood almost every Sunday. So it's cool that like we innately have competitive component, like tendencies, but like it shouldn't take away the joy of the sport.
That's wonderful. So how did the virtual marathon work for you anyway?
So it was a funny whole ordeal. So you have the ability to run so typically Boston is on a Monday. So they gave you the Monday, the 7th of September, all the way to Monday, the 14th. So you had 7 days to run. But like, I'm someone, like I said, like it's very mental for me. So I even asked if I could run early, but I was like, that doesn't make sense. So I ran on the 7th, and our original plan was to run at like 6:50 because it was wicked hot there. Unfortunately, I'll get to that in a second. Weather didn't allow for that, but my birthday was the 6th. And we just got on vacation the 5th. So it was just like so much going on. But I told everyone like my birthday was not happening the 6th, like different, not this year. So the whole day of the 6th, we like drove around. We were planning, we had an original route and realized it wasn't going to work because half of it was behind a gated community. So the day before the race, we realized the route wasn't going to be the route. So that was one thing. And then literally the evening of the 6th, like right before the race, planning to start at 6:50, we saw 100% chance of rain for the next like 12 hours. So like I remember praying with my parents. I call them like my teammates because like they literally are like so crucial to like my running success. But they're like, all right, if it doesn't happen, in Hilton Head, rain is like not like sprinkle. It's a torrential downpour, and on a running or bike path that you just can't do it. Like the puddles, it would have been absolutely dangerous. So my parents came in my room the 7th at like 6 a.m. and it was raining, and we're like, it's not going to happen. Like, the next few days are also rainy. Let's pause on this time and wait for it to clear up later in the afternoon. And like, I'm very not a patient person. So like the fact that I was open to that just showed how much I cared about like the goal of hitting 3 hours. So I said, okay. And we all fell back to sleep for like an hour, but I texted my mom and I was like, Mom, there's an opening about 9 a.m. Like, let's just go. You don't know how it's going to change. So I went from planning 6:50 to I started my first mile at 9:05. And it was completely bright out, really hot, but sunny and beautiful. It was Labor Day. So it was just like the best gift from God ever, because like I was able to run and the circumstance was awesome and everyone was able to be there. So.
Wow. That's good. And even though there were there puddles that were dangerous, or was it okay?
No, it was pretty okay. And honestly, the humidity and sun, I'm sure, helped with that, because there was like an hour before we actually started. There was
sucked them all up.
Yeah, exactly. There were puddles, but nothing I felt uncomfortable or anything like that with.
Okay. So then, so it kind of, your dad, he ran part of the way with
No.
He ran part of the route though, or something?
No.
I thought there was something like that.
No, definitely no runners with me. My dad would bike, and to stop like the traffic, because I told everyone, I was like, you're going to tell, like, I know the parent nature of you, you're going to tell me to stop, but I promise you I will not stop. Like, unless bathroom, that's fine. But there's no way I'm stopping. So my dad was like, all right, she's stubborn. We know that. So he stopped like some intersections, but I did it there and back. So it was actually really funny. Like, I mean, it's almost 2 hours and 50 minutes almost. So by the time I was on the 4th go around, like people were cheering. It was kind of like, all right, we see her. Like, so everyone was very accommodating. It was like such a positive experience in Hilton Head doing it.
Did people know? Could they figure it out what you were doing?
Well, the cool thing is, this just shows how like different, but in a beautiful way, like my parents are. Like my dad was like strategy guy. He had like a piece of paper and was like, I know you want sub 3. Like, this is where you should be. Like, I'll kind of like wave you down if you're off and stuff. And my mom wasn't doing that. Like, she wasn't on a bike or anything. But we called her like the pit crew, because she had like our minivan, like the rental car, and they had signs, and she was like driving all the other 3 of them around so she could stop and then cheer us on, and they get back in the car. So there was just this making up for not having crowds. Like, they were phenomenal. So. Oh
my gosh. Wow. So you're going back, you've got this route that you have to go back and forth on, because of circumstances and everything. Right. And people were actually, wishing you well as you were going.
The beautiful thing is, my brother and Faye and Will were all like, she's running a marathon, like with giant signs and the Boston shirt. So by that time, and then like anytime that they would drive by me, like they'd be cheering out the window. So it was easy to catch on, but it was hilarious just seeing them like drive by with like 3 heads out the window and my mom cheering. So it was such a fun.
That's really fun. Mm-hmm. Yes. So how'd you do? I mean, how was, as far as your personal time?
I was very happy. My goal was to hit. So the previous year I had 3 hours flat with 56 seconds or 54 seconds, which is lovely, but it's not hitting 2:59. Like, it was such like, I want it. So my goal was to have a sub 3 hour marathon. And I think because of the weather thing I explained earlier, when I knew I had a break in the weather, I was so eager to like run it that, I had so much adrenaline that I was able to beat that goal by 12 minutes. And I felt like the last lap coming back, it was like, so like, I didn't realize we were done. I looked at my watch and it was like 26:1. So I felt really good. And it was just, my dad was at some point early on, he's like, don't go out too hard, which was really helpful. But, I felt really great though. It was good. Yes.
Congratulations. What was that like when you realized, I mean, you had to wait to find out, correct? Because the actual race, all the marathoners had 7 days.
Right.
To complete this.
I absolutely would, if I did it again, I would do the first day, 100%. Okay. But there was a sense of tease, like sitting at this exact desk working, like probably 15 times a day. I would just refresh the app to see like it would just like women leaderboard, and and there would be like some like default submissions. It would say like 1 minute, so like 3 names would pop up, and it was clear like no one ran in a minute. But 7 days, that was pretty brutal, and I didn't tell anyone. My dad was like, "You think you're in the top 100?" And like up to day 6, I'm like sitting there at 1 and 2. I'm like, maybe, but in my head, I'm like, just hold on tight. So.
That's incredible. So at the end of it all, at the end of that 7 days, and you ended up being the second fastest woman in the virtual Boston Marathon. How did that feel?
It was weird. Like we watched the closing ceremonies and my parents were shocked. Actually, initially the weird thing was the closing ceremonies, I was third. And then they realized the second place woman, it was like a default time or something. So I realized a day and a half later after I did like an Instagram post and stuff, I was actually second. So, but the weird thing is like, that was such a great feeling, but I knew virtual was a different experience. Like we all ran different courses. I think I was just more so focused and satisfied on like my actual run in Hilton Head and not the fact that I placed second. That was really like the fact that I had the capability to run 12 minutes faster was really like kind of what I focused on the whole time and not a placement. That makes sense.
Yes, that's great. So what's next for you?
Next is guidance. Since I didn't run in high school or college, I will be the first to admit, like I felt like I'm all over the place. Like I just kind of ran and I didn't have my easy days and I'm running with the same shoes. I wasn't doing enough weight training. So that's exciting because I'm like 24. Like I don't take it as a negative. I just think it is an opportunity. So after about like 2 or 3 weeks after, I was like really seeking out a coach. And luckily I was able to start working with James McCurdy. He has a program, McCurdy Trained, and it's like been the best 3 weeks ever. Like he gives me so much knowledge. Like I feel like I literally joked with him 2 days ago. I was like, I need to read Running for Dummies. Like I've learned so incredibly much, which is cool because it's like I think of knowledge as power, and I love the sport and want it to be sustainable. So the more I can learn, like the more enjoyment the sport will bring.
That's great. Okay. So do you have any marathons that you truly have your sights set on?
In a positive way, no. Like I'm not super eager to run Boston this year, knowing the uncertainty with the pandemic. I think timeline wise, maybe in the spring or early summer would be like my next one. Shows how much I needed a coach, but part of me was like, oh, should I do Ohio Northern like this November? And that like, it would be ridiculous to run a marathon a month and a half later. Like, so there's no rush into it. I really want to start like, tapping into shorter distances. I have no like knowledge or experience there, but that's exciting because like I said, it's just fun to try something new. So James and I are kind of working on that right now as we speak. And then later mid next year is when I would potentially do my 4th marathon.
Okay. I didn't understand what you said about the person. You thought you had come in third in the Boston virtual marathon. And then this person who placed second, it was a default time. I don't understand that. What exactly does that mean?
So because it's a virtual marathon and we don't have like bibs where they're tracking us, we're responsible for submitting our own times. But because Boston like association's very legitimate and stuff, they check like the route and make sure it's legitimate. And I didn't just like start a timer. It so happened that that original second place woman, I think it was like a misplaced time or it wasn't accurate. So.
Oh, a mistake was made probably. Or
exactly.
Something.
Yes. And they kept it on through that final night. So.
Okay. So did she end up coming in third then?
No, I think it was like a very off time. Like it was like much later, which is very fun. Yeah. But yes, yeah.
I'm quite ignorant of the running world.
Oh no, I was like really confused. I was like, I think the app missed this lady. Like, where'd she go? I was like Googling her. I felt bad because I was like, where'd you go? So
yeah, I know. Because wouldn't you feel horrible if something like that happened? But you want it to be accurate. So I understand. Yeah. Megan, what advice do you have for would-be runners?
Just give it a try. Honestly, I mean, if my history and experience doesn't speak for itself, how I ran a cul-de-sac, not even like maybe 2/10 a mile, to spending about 5 to 6 years being absolutely terrified, like genuinely terrified of the sport, to now I can't think of something that brings me more joy. Just like give it a try. And if that means running, walking, if that means wearing old shoes and going like to run a cul-de-sac and go from there. But I think the best thing is it just shows people what they're capable of. And there's such a community and opportunity there. So
That's great. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being here today, and many good wishes as you run like the wind.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a joy speaking with you.
It's been a great pleasure. Thanks. This is Kate Thomas with At Home Radio. Until next time, many thanks for joining us today.
At Home Radio. Creator and presenter, Kate Thomas. Music and video produced by Jonathan, the producer.